Today we will discuss three topics which are very, very small, and from exam point of view, they are not that important. But in microbiology, of course, this amoebic colitis will be dealt in detail. So, what is amoebic colitis? You have been taught amoeba?
No, sir.
Have you been taught amoeba?
Sir. No, sir.
Entamoeba histolytica is the causative agent of amoebic colitis. Site of colitis is cecum and ascending colon, most common. Otherwise, entire large gut and even terminal ileum may be involved. So cecum and ascending colon common site. Otherwise, the whole large gut and terminal part of ileum may be involved. Source of infection is cyst of Entamoeba histolytica, enter via contaminated water and food. So it is a contaminated water and food with the cyst. Cysts are passed in the stools of the carrier or in the patients, and they contaminate the water and food, and that it is waterborne or foodborne disease. Pathogenesis is cyst wall is resistant to gastric juice. So it is resistant to acid and pepsin, but it is digested by trypsin in the small intestine. And when the cyst wall is digested by trypsin, 4 trophozoites emerge from it. And those trophozoites colonize the cecum and form multiple ulcers. So this is pathogenesis. Source of infection is contaminated water and food. Site is ascending colon and cecum. Otherwise, the whole of the large gut and terminal ileum may be involved. Pathogenesis is the cyst of the amoeba are ingested. They resist the digestion by pepsin, that is acid pepsin, but they are broken. Their wall is broken by trypsin in the small intestine, and 4 trophozoites are released which colonize in the colon and form multiple ulcer. Most common site, as I told you, cecum and ascending colon. Now, what is the morphology? Under sigmoidoscopy, you see discrete ulcers, discrete pinpoint ulcers. They are covered by the exudate, that is a pus-like thing. And in between the ulcer, the mucosa is normal. So discrete ulceration of the cecum and ascending colon, intervening mucosa is normal. That mucosa in between the ulcer is normal. And these ulcers are covered by exudate. Under microscope, these are flask-shaped ulcer with undermined edges, means overhanging edges. That edges are overhanging the ulcer, and there is a paucity of inflammatory cells. It is not a bacterial infection, it is a parasite, so there is a paucity of inflammatory cells. And trophozoites are seen in the wall of ulcer, not in the abscess, in the center. It is surrounded by a clear space because they secrete proteolytic enzyme and that breaks the surrounding tissue, so there is a clear space around the trophozoites. They are round to oval, 6 to 40 nanometer, and cytoplasm is vacuolated. Nucleus is center with prominent nucleolus. They are confused in macrophages. One has to be very careful. That's why stains are done to confirm that they are not macrophages, they are the trophozoites. And what are the stains? Pus stain as well as iron hematoxylin stain. These two stains, periodic acid shift reagent stain and iron hematoxylin stain. In this, they will be stained black. In this, they will be stained pink. And they will show erythrophagocytosis. Here, as I told you, in typhoid ulcer, there was a erythrophagocytosis. Means there, of course, macrophages were doing the erythrophagocytosis. In amoebic ulcer, these are the trophozoites of Entamoeba histolytica, which have got engulfed erythrocyte red cells. So this is the morphology, gross picture and microscopic picture. Gross discrete ulcers covered with the exudate. They are in the ascending colon and cecum most common. And the intervening mucosa between the ulcer is normal. Under microscope, these ulcers are flask shape with overhanging margin or edges, and there is a paucity or there are very few inflammatory cells. And trophozoites are seen in the wall of the ulcer. And around the trophozoites, there is a clear space because the surrounding tissue is broken by the proteolytic enzyme they secrete. Their size is 6 to 40 nanometer, and cytoplasm is vacuolated and they contain erythrocytes. So that is erythrophagocytosis is there, and they are confused with the macrophages. The special stains for EH is PAS stain and iron hematoxylin stain. So this is the morphology. I told you pathogenesis. I told you site of infection and also the route of infection, that is oral, and cause of infection, that is a cyst of intermeba histolytica. Now these are the ulcer gross, not this small. These are the ulcers. In between you see the mucosa is normal. These are the ulcers, not this. Now these are something fecal matter lying in the colon. Now I told you under microscope, they will be flask. This is a flask. So this is flask shaped ulcer, and this trophozoites will be in the wall here, not in the center of the ulcer. This will be exudate. That is necrotic proteolytic, this nephrotic tissue which has been digested by the proteolytic enzyme secreted by the ulcer, trophozoite. So they form ulcer by breaking down the tissue by proteolytic enzymes, and they are found in the edges here, not in the center. Now these are the trophozoites. You can see these are a 6 to 40 nanometer. They are large. And see the nucleus is this. These are the nucleus. And these red cells, these are erythrocytes. These red cells, they have engulfed the RBC. This is HNE stain. And this is PAS stain. They are PAS positive and they are all stained in the, see, this is a area around the trophozoite which is a clear area because they secrete enzyme which breaks down the protein around. Here also see there is a clear space. So everywhere there is a clear space around the ulcer because they digest the surrounding tissue. So this is PAS stain, and that was and this is the HE stain. You'll see erythrophagocytosis, and this is a flaccid ulcer, and these are the gross sigmoidoscopy. See, you can see that these discrete ulcer in between the mucosa is normal. So this is a ulcerative colitis, this amoebic colitis, and complications are perforation, which is rare. It is not that common as in the typhoid ulcer or intestinal ulcer. It is less common. And the most important complication is formation of abscess in the liver and lung and brain and spleen or any other organ, kidney. The amoebic abscess can be formed anywhere, and the most common site is liver. And that too in liver, it is the right side of flow because the superior mesenteric vein drains to the right side of the liver. So most common site is in the liver and that in right lobe. Otherwise, it can occur also in the lung, brain, kidney, spleen. So what is the liver amoebic abscess? Involvement occurs following invasion by E. histolytica into mesenteric venules. Those trophozoites go enter the mesenteric venules, and then they enter the portal circulation and travel to the liver where they typically form a single abscess. Generally, they are single. There may be multiple, but multiple abscesses means pyogenic abscess. Pyogenic bacteria cause multiple abscesses. Amoebic generally is single, but it may be two or three. That is exception. So liver, they form single abscess or maybe multiple abscess, but multiple is rare. And they reach via portal circulation from the colon to the liver. The abscess contain acellular, that is a broken down proteinaceous debris, and the debris resembles chocolate sauce. It is not a purulent pus. It is a chocolate color of pus. So it is called chocolate sauce or anchovy sauce. So when you remember, you always remember anchovy sauce or chocolate sauce appearance of the pus in the liver. That is a amoebic liver abscess. And this is formed by apoptosis. And this abscess is surrounded by the rim of amoebic trophozoites. So here also the trophozoites will be found in the wall of the abscess, not in the pus, central pus, which is anchovy sauce or chocolate sauce like pus. And the wall of the abscess is ragged, means it is not even and smooth. It is irregular, rough. And right lobe of liver is more commonly involved. I told you superior mesenteric vein drains to the right side of liver. Complication, liver abscess again can rupture and can form peritonitis. See, this is irregular cavity wedge. This is not a smooth. These are ragged or irregular wall. And inside is anchovy sauce or anchovy paste, whatever you call, or chocolate sauce like pus. So this is a liver abscess of amoebic liver abscess. This is a liver, and this surface you can see the abscess, which may burst. You know, it is protruding on the surface, and it may burst. So that is a amoebic colitis. Complication is ulcer may perforate and it forms multiple abscess in liver. A single abscess may be multiple, and other places or brain, lung, kidney, spleen. And this abscess, third complication is the rupture of this abscess. So this is the amoebic colitis. The next topic, I told you, small topics are there. Necrotizing enterocolitis, which is called NEC. So necrotizing enterocolitis occurs in newborn, and it is a gastrointestinal emergency in the newborn, especially the children which are preterm or in premature. So this is a newborn disease and more common in premature infant. And what happens in this mucosa and the wall of the gut undergoes ischemic necrosis. So small and large intestine, mucosa, and sometimes the whole of the wall of the gut undergoes ischemic necrosis. And that is followed by inflammation, invasion by gas-forming enteric organism, and they produce gas. So this gas dissects into the muscular layer, and it may enter the portal venous system also. So there is a collection of gas because that gas is formed by the gas-forming organism which are present in the intestine. Site of the necrotizing, any part of the wall may be small and large, but terminal ileum and cecum and ascending colon, that is right side of the gut, is more commonly affected. So it is a emergency in the newborn, most common in preterm children or in premature, and it's characterized by necrosis, ischemic necrosis of the mucosa as well as the sometimes whole wall of the gut, small and large. And this gas forming organism form the gas which dissects the muscular layer, and it may be lying under the serosal layer, or it may also enter the portal venous circulation. Now, what is the pathogenesis? Exact etiology is not known, and it is supposed to be multifactorial. So when nothing is known, we call it multifactorial idiopathic. Now, what are the risk factors? As I told you, prematurity is most important risk factor, and immature intestinal circulation is the cause. That's why there is a ischemia. Something wrong with the circulation of the intestine. It is not sufficient, so it is undergoes necrosis. Then this artificial formula feeds, they lead to increased risk of this necrotizing enterocolitis. Intrauterine growth retardation, that is also risk. Polycythemia means increase in the RBC number. Hypoglycemia, sepsis, exchange transfusion, and gestational diabetes. These are the risk factors of necrotizing enterocolitis. So most important, you should remember is prematurity, newborn in bed, premature, eternal feeding. At least these two you should remember. Internal feeding, that is a formula feeds that is available in the market, and prematurity, and the main cause is ischemic necrosis of mucosa and the bowel wall, and that is caused by underdeveloped, immature intestinal circulation, as well as decreased immunity of the intestinal wall. That's why the bacteria invade. Once after necrosis there, and then bacteria will invade, and those bacteria are gas formed, and they form gas which which breaks the intestinal wall and collects in the serosa and in muscular layer. So this is a necrotizing enterocolitis risk factors. At least two you should remember. Now, what is pathogenesis? Immature abnormal intestinal circulation and immature immunity of the gut leads to mucosal ischemia, transmural necrosis, and perforation. Invasion of bacteria leads to inflammatory response and production of gas in subserosa. If child survives, these multiple necrotic lesions will heal and they form stricture. So there is a multiple stricture in the intestine. So that is pathogenesis. Mainly it is a intestinal circulation is abnormal and immature immunity. So these are the intestinal ischemia, pathogenic organism, and internal nutrition. That is a feed, artificial feed. So these are the triangle. So at least you should remember this. Not all that premature, diabetes and those other things which we talk to, polycythemia, exchange transfusion, all, at least these you should know. The same thing is the ischemic or toxic mucosal damage, loss of mucosal integrity, internal feeding, bacterial proliferation, invasion of mucosa and submucosa, intramural gas inside the muscle layer, inside, and transmural necrosis, perforation, and peritonitis. So this is pathogenesis of necrotizing enterocolitis. Now, what is morphology? The intestinal infarction, because it is ischemic necrosis, there is intestinal infarction. Terminal ileum, colon are involved in majority of cases. Sometimes entire gastrointestinal tract is affected in severe cases. Involved segment is congested, distended, and gangrenous, leading to perforation. Subserosal gas within the intestinal wall, you can see, that is called pneumatosis intestinalis. This may be asked in the MCQ. This gas in the wall of the gut, that is in subserosa, in NEC is produced. That is called pneumatosis intestinalis. The pneumatosis means gas. Intestinalis means the intestine wall. So you should know this. What is the pneumatosis intestinalis? And as the gut heals, there will be stenosis. Of course, there are complications we'll talk. So this you should remember this gas in the intestinal wall. Pneumatosis intestinal, of course, ischemic necrosis of the segments of the intestine or whole intestine is there. There will be inflammation, congestion, and gas in the wall of the. Now, under microscope, you will see mucosal or transmural necrosis. That is necrosis, infarction of mucosa and the whole wall of the gut. Bacterial colony you can see, and submucous gas bubble or subserosal gas bubble. This is not only submucous, there is subserosal, more common subserosal. Mortality is very high, 20 to 60%. So this is a microscopic. Now this is a normal gut of a child. This is nothing, this is just to, although it's not showing here, it is showing this normal gut. And this is the NEC. You see the hemorrhagic bleeding, necrosed part, blackish, that gangrene is there. And under microscope, these are normal villi of the intestine. Here they are all necrosed. See normal wall, normal villi. These are necrosed villi and necrosed wall. This is vascular congestion because of inflammation. Now these are the gas. See some mucus, this is muscular layer, this is the mucosa and some mucosa. These are the gas bubble. This is nematosis intestinalis. So under microscope you can see the gas. And this gas breaks the tissue as it penetrates in the different plane. And that will further cause the necrosis of the tissue because the blood vessel supply is compromised. This is under under X-ray. You see these multiple gas bubbles in the NEC, necrotizing enterocolitis. What are complications? Intestinal perforation, peritonitis, sepsis, and when healing occurs, intestinal strictures. So these are the various complications of the necrotizing enterocolitis. So it is very simple. Those two conditions, that is amoebic colitis and necrotizing enterocolitis, are small topic, very simple to understand. One is because of ischemia, the other one is of course parasite. So the third topic is pancreatic carcinoma, its morphology and complication. This is also not very important. Acute pancreatitis is very important. That's why I'll be taking it in the next lecture. That has been asked many times. So you should know something about pancreatic carcinoma. Only thing, it is not very common, but it is one of the very deadly carcinoma because mortality rate is very high. And can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All are sleeping. Now, what are the sites? This pancreatic carcinoma, no pancreas in the first part of duodenum, in the loop. And this is a head, and this is a body, and this is a tail. Tail is near the spleen. Now, these are the incidents of pancreatic cancer in head, in the body, and in the tail. In tail, it is 5%, in the body, it is 13%, and in the head, it is most common, that is 61%. And involving the whole pancreas, it is 21%. So this is the incidence. So main purpose is it is the most common in the head of the pancreas. And if there is a cancer here and it is growing, what it will do? It will press on the duodenum. It will press there on the antrum of stomach. And common bile duct is coming and opening here now. Common bile duct and pancreatic duct, they join and open in the first part of duodenum, and that is also compromised, that is blocked, so there will be jaundice. I will be talking about that later. Now these are the malignant pancreatic neoplasm can be divided into endocrine and non-endocrine. Pancreas produces endocrine, that is a insulin. Then it produces gastrin. It produces glucagon. It produces somatotropin. So all those neuroendocrine cells can give rise to a tumor, that is insulinoma, that is producing insulin, gastrinoma, producing gastrin, somastatinoma, non-endocrine biliary tumor of the pancreas, and there are endocrine. Neuroendocrine, I told you, like insulinoma, which rises from beta cell, then glucagonoma, alpha cell, gastrinoma, from gastrin producing cell, then somastatinoma and all that, like that. So that is not in our syllabus. So syllabus is only pancreatic carcinoma. and that too morphology and complication. Even this classification is not there, but you should know what are the endocrine and non-endocrine. Endocrine tumor, I told you, and non-endocrine tumor, that is epithelial tumor arising from duct cell, that is pancreatic duct and pancreatics. So ductal cell origin is first group. Second is acinar cell, that is a glandular element of the pancreas. So there is duct and there are glands. Glands produce the pancreatic juice. Duct are the duct which carry the fluid to the juice to the duodenum. So carcinoma of pancreas can be of ductal origin. It can be of acinar, that is a glandular cell origin. So it is called acinar cell adenocarcinoma, which arises from acini, that is glandular element, and this is rare. Most common is ductal cell carcinoma of the pancreas, and these are ductal cell adenocarcinoma like acinar cell adenocarcinoma. Then giant cell carcinoma, when they form giant cell. Adenosquamous carcinoma, when there is a gland as well as squamous epithelium. Colloid carcinoma, usually a lot of mucin production is there. Cyst adenocarcinoma, that is when there is formation of cyst as well as gland. And microadenocarcinoma, which are very small glands, ducts, and that is called microadenocarcinoma. So these are various types of carcinoma of ductal cell origin. And then carcinoma acinar, only acinar cell carcinoma. So there are 6 types of ductal cell carcinoma: ductal cell adenocarcinoma, giant cell carcinoma, adenosquamous, mucinous, cyst adenocarcinoma, and microadenocarcinoma. Now, carcinoma of uncertain primitive or multiple, that is, you are not supposed to know that pancreaticoblastoma, mixed type, with all that is a mixed type of carcinoma, unclassified carcinoma. So at least you remember these two: carcinoma of ductal cell origin as well as carcinoma of acinar cell. At least that should be in your mind. Of course, nobody will ask you this classification because they have written only morphology and complication of. This is not important. Now, morphology. Gross, it is hard to feel the cancer. It is stellate shape, means it is in center, there is a focus and then radiating from there in a radial fashion, that is called stellate shaped, grayish white, and it is poorly defined. It is not well defined. It is a stellate shaped hard tumor in the pancreas. It may be head, it may be body, it may be tail. Most common is the head of the pancreas. Majority ductal carcinoma are well differentiated, means they form glands and they secrete mucin. But two characters are very characteristic of pancreatic carcinoma. As I told you, mortality rate is very high. It is highly invasive. It is highly invasive and it produces a large amount of desmoplastic reaction. That is, it produces a lot of fibrosis. So that's why it is hard. So this is a gross picture, and there is a microscopic picture. It forms gland and secretes mucin, as well as it forms lot of fibrosis. It produces a lot of fibrosis. So that is characteristic of, and it may be moderately to poorly differentiated, means there will be abortive tubular formation, or maybe only cell clusters, no tubular structure. So that was a morphology. That is a stellate cell, hard and grayish white, and then under microscope it is a gland forming, that is tubular structure formation, and lot of fibrosis is there. Lot of fibrosis and several types, means it can be of duct cell adenocarcinoma, it can be cyst adenocarcinoma, it can be adenosquamous carcinoma, it can be colloid carcinoma, all those things what I told you, 6 type of ductal cell carcinoma. So that is one. And then acinar cell carcinoma will be forming glands again. That is, those glands will remember not the ducts, but they will remember the pancreatic gland. Now, complication or highest mortality, 5 to 15 years, 15%. 5-year survival is 5%. You know, only 5% of the patient of pancreatic cancer can live up to the 5 years. 5-year survival means it is cured. So cure rate is only 5%, which is very low. Then carcinoma of the head of pancreas causes obstructive jaundice. And this is called, this it is a painless jaundice. You know, obstructive jaundice is caused by stone or some tumor in the bile duct or in the cystic duct, but it causes pain and inflammation leading to cholecystitis. Now, in this, the carcinoma head means blockage is at the common bile duct or bile duct, and there is a obstructive jaundice because of that block. And this jaundice is painless jaundice, and gallbladder will be enlarged. So, painless jaundice with the enlargement of gallbladder is when you have ruled out the gallstone, it is the cause of carcinoma of head of pancreas. And this is called Courvoisier's sign. Courvoisier's sign, Courvoisor. Courvoisier sign is to be taught in the clinical side. Courvoisier sign is enlargement of gallbladder, that is palpable gallbladder in the obstructive jaundice, which is a painless, and you have ruled out any stone. So this is a carcinoma of head of the pancreas leading to obstructive jaundice, and Courvoisier sign means enlargement of the gallbladder and painless jaundice. Now this jaundice is quite severe because this bilirubin, when it leads to itching of the skin and lot of problem, and it is quite high blood level of bilirubin. The second complication is body entail quite large tumor, and they get disseminated to the different parts of the body, as well as in the, they may be disseminated in the peritoneal cavity, in the ovary, or they may go to the left supraclavicular left lymph node, what is called Virchow lymph node. Stomach of carcinoma produces that. Even pancreatic carcinoma can lead to formation of this Virchow gland enlargement. Then invasion of adjacent structure. The other characteristic of this is migratory thrombophlebitis, means inflammation of the veins, and it is a shifting. It is not confined to one vein; it shifts from one place to other. That's why it is called migratory, and that is called Trousseau sign. Trousseau sign, migratory thrombophlebitis. This is caused because of release of tissue thromboplastin in the circulation. Tissue factor that is which leads to coagulation. So the blood becomes hypercoagulable, and that will lead to migratory thrombophlebitis. So Trousseau sign, Courvoisier syndrome, these are the two things here you should remember. Courvoisier syndrome, obstructive jaundice, painless jaundice caused by obstruction of the bile at the head of the pancreas, and the enlargement of the gallbladder. Trousseau sign is migratory thrombophlebitis. There are other complications will be there about chronic pancreatitis. Then it will be diabetes and all this. So these are the, I think now this is, you can see this is the grayish white hard tumor in the pancreas. This is of course normal pancreas. These are the satellite lesion. These are the stellate. This may be like radiating like that. So that's why it is called stellate. Here not, it is not a very stellate, but you can see this projection here. These are the stellate shape, grayish white hard lesion in the pancreas. Now this is under microscope. These are the normal pancreatic glands. You see this. And these are all carcinoma cell. They are also forming tubules. These are glands. These are tubules. And see lot of fibrosis. That is desmoplasia. So that's why it is very hard. It is this is cancerous area. This is normal area. So it forms tubule. See, these are the cancer cells. These are glands, are tubules. See, lumen is there, and this fibrosis is so marked. This is desmoplasia. This is a characteristic of pancreatic carcinoma. See, this is a very well differentiated. See, these are nucleus is large, hyperchromatic, pleomorphism is there, nucleoli will be seen. So that is a pancreatic carcinoma. You are supposed to know morphology. That is ductal type and acinar type. Ductal type can be of ductal adenocarcinoma, cystadenocarcinoma, uh, adenosquamous carcinoma, then all those types I told you. And then acinar cell pancreatic carcinoma will be, of course, only one type. And I showed you the gross morphology. Stellate shape, grayish white, hard tumor can occur in the head, and the incidence is highest in the head. Most common complication is obstructive jaundice, leading to enlargement of the gallbladder, painless enlargement of the gallbladder. That is called Purvice's sinus syndrome. And the other one is migratory thrombophlebitis. That is a inflammation of veins, which is it is a migrating from one place to other, from abdomen, in the leg, abdomen, it may be in the leg, or it may be neck. So that is a migrating thrombophlebitis. And of course, perforation and dissemination and cachexia and surgical complications. Now, those are all various complications. The mortality is very high. That is a 5-year survivor is only 5%, and that's why it is a dreaded carcinoma. Most of the people die. Very few recover. So that is pancreatic carcinoma. Then before that, necrotizing enterocolitis, I told you. Again, because of ischemic necrosis of mucosa and wall of mucosa, invasion by the bacteria, gas forming, leading to the necrosis of mural as well as and accumulation of gas in the gut wall, small intestine, large intestine, and that is called nematosis intestinalis. And cause I told you because of immature circulation as well as immunity and invasion of the leading to ischemia of the and infarction of the mucosa and the intestinal wall. That is NEC, most common in the children, newborn children, prematurity, one of the very important indication, risk factor. And then of course, enteral feeding is another very high risk factor. And then before that, I talked to you about amoebic colitis that is caused by ingestion of the cyst of the amoeba through food or water, and it passes through the stomach, not digested by the pepsin or acid, but digested by trypsin. So wall of the cyst is broken intestine, and the 4 trophozoas from one cyst will emerge, and they will invade the wall of the mucosa of the intestine. That is a large intestine. That is a cecum and ascending colon, most common site of the amoebic colitis. And it is flask-shaped pinpoint ulcer covered with the gross sigmoidoscopy. You'll find pinpoint ulcer covered with the slough and grayish white material, and in between the ulcer, the mucosa is normal. Under microscope, you'll find a flask-shaped abscess, and in that the trophozoite will be found in the wall of the ulcer. Flask-shaped ulcer in the center, trophozoite will not be there because there is hardly anything to eat. That is all necrotic. So they are present in the wall of the ulcer, and which is ulcer is flask-shaped. And these amoeba trophozoas can be confused with the macrophages because their size is almost same, 6 to 40 nanometer. And then the characteristic feature is that they show the engulfment of RBC, that is erythrophagocytosis, and they can be stained by PAS stain, which stains pink, as well as black by the iron hematopsia. So that is a complication is liver abscess. I told you what is the liver abscess, how it is caused, and the abscess generally it is single, and the wall of the abscess is ragged. It is very irregular, not as smooth, and amoeba are found in the wall, and the pus in the center of abscess is called chocolate colored pus or anchovy sauce pus. So these are some of the things you should know because they may be asked in the MCQ. Anchovy pus or chocolate pus, then nematosis intestinalis and all like that. some of the words maybe in MCQ to know test the knowledge. So I have finished. Any question? If you can, any question?